Introducing Colonel Robert H. Shawley, speaker and counterterrorism expert. Shawley teaches preparedness for potential terrorist actions and active shooter situations.
Counterterrorism is the use of a set of skills that prevent or minimize terrorist acts in public or at home.
In the military, I learned about security.
"9/11 really was a wake-up call for Americans.
Unfortunately, a lot of people went back to sleep. The United States started its global war on terror, and then ISIS grew out of Al-Qaeda. We had the bombings in France, shootings in California and San Bernardino, and I suspect there will be more. If you're an individual, you concern yourself with what is the threat. We need to identify what it is that they're thinking, where they're going to be, and what they're going to do, so that we can then prepare ourselves to defend against those actions.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about counterterrorism. And anti-terrorism is also the same word used for counterterrorism. I like to use the word counterterrorism because that indicates a proactive stance instead of just more of a passive, wait for it to happen. Now, how many of you have participated in drills in your medical facilities for an active shooter situation? Several, but not, whoa, far more didn't than did. Now that's alarming. I've spent a great deal of time, over 20 some odd years in the Middle East, dealing and being involved with terrorist type situations and organizations. I was never a terrorist, but I know what they look like. As a matter of fact, I was stationed in Iran, and I was at a place called Ardabil. And they had a lot of people in the bazaar, which is the big marketplace that they have in those places. And they were all running around and shouting, and I speak Farsi, but they were talking too fast for me to really interpret what they were saying. All I could tell is it was a group of very angry people. So I saw the sights of Ardabil and went back into Tehran, and the guy at the embassy, whose office I worked out of, said, "So, what about the riots?" And I said, "What riots?" And I didn't realize that I had been in the beginning of the revolutionary riots that subsequently finally toppled the Shah of Iran, and which spread throughout the country. I was visiting a small town in the southwestern part of Iran, and they had a fire. Now, there was only one theater in this Muslim country, and it was in this town that I was visiting. But what had happened was terrorists, or the anti-Shah terrorists, I guess is a better word, had locked the doors of the theater and set it afire. They burned everybody inside. They could hear it. And that was really the kickoff of the revolution in Iran in 1979. Subsequently, as you know, the Shah of Iran was deposed. When it really got exciting, they moved me from Iran to Afghanistan, which is where I was, again, traveling around the country. And about 6 months after I got in Afghanistan, the Soviets rolled in. So I had to move out of Afghanistan because there were all kinds of violent things happening. I was the chief of operations for the United Nations in the Middle East. My organization was the United Nations Truce Supervision Organization, headquartered in Jerusalem. my mission area was Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Israel, West Bank, and Gaza. And there were all kinds of things happening. Anytime you're around Israel, the Arabs are trying to do something to it, and the Israelis are then responding. The Israelis had invaded Lebanon to try and get rid of the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And in so doing, it became back and forth, back and forth. It ended up where the United States was supporting Israel, and the United States Embassy was blown up with a truck bomb. A couple of weeks later, the Marine barracks at the airport in Beirut was blown up by a truck bomb. All of these terrorist organizations have letters. There's the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the PFLP, the Palestinian Liberation Front for the Liberation of Lebanon, of Palestine. There is Hezbollah. There is, I can't even remember, a dictionary doesn't hold all the letters for these things. But my point here is they come and they go. And they focus on one particular thing, primarily for the ones that I mentioned, was throwing the Israelis into the sea, as they said, and taking over Israel as an Arab country. That is not going to happen, but they certainly try all the time. So I have been involved in a lot of these terrorists and been on the cusp of things and seen the result of terrorists, and I dislike terrorists fare thee well. I was on an operation. I was working out of Budapest when 9/11 occurred. And a friend of mine said, "Turn on your television." I turned on the television in time to see the second plane smash into the towers. I was held in Europe because no planes were flying for another week and a half. I dislike terrorists. And I have kind of made it my life's mission. I'm not fanatic about it, but I want to warn people about terrorists. I want to prepare them for the mindset that it requires for them to be able to protect themselves and their loved ones. Now, those of you who have not participated in exercises in your medical facilities, you should say something to the people who have something to do with that and find out when they're going to do these exercises. Because each hospital, each medical facility is required to be prepared for these sort of events.
In 2011,
There were 14 shootings in hospitals.
in
There
2012,
were 16. Since that time, the numbers have just gone up. And now it is a hospital is involved in some sort of shooting event every other month. It hasn't gotten that much in 2016, but I have no doubts it will continue to occur. Now, all of this is not necessarily related only to Muslim terrorists, to the jihadists, to the right-wing jihadists. We have our own homegrown domestic terrorists as well, as everybody knows. Oklahoma City. We can name several of these people who have come into hospitals because their medical caregivers have not been able to save their loved ones, and they take revenge on them by shooting them. In January 2015, a doctor in Boston was killed by a guy who came in who his mother didn't look like she was going to make it. So he came in, he shot the doctor who was responsible for her care, then he shot his mother. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. We know about San Bernardino. That was a Muslim terrorist. In San Diego now, we all got kind of excited after San Bernardino. In San Diego, at the naval facility there, they never did fully understand what happened, but shots were reported to have been fired in the medical facility. they had a lockdown. They had a kindergarten there for children of the employees. They shut that out. They managed to evacuate that. The law enforcement agencies did a superb job. Shut down everything, told everybody to hunker down and hold in place. And while the police and law enforcement agencies went through the hospital, they found absolutely nothing that would indicate that a shooter had ever been there. There were all kinds of speculations that a box had been dropped on the floor, making a big boom. Who knows? My point being is that there are hospitals now who are preparing themselves and their employees for events like this. But it is up to the individual employee to make these plans happen. Now, I suspect that each one of your medical facilities has a plan. FEMA requires a plan, and they get together with the risk management people in the hospital or the medical facility. They get together with the security people. They get together with the administrative people. They get together with the doctors and the nurses and all those specialists like yourselves who deal and run these medical facilities. So there's a plan somewhere that tells you what to do in some event that something like this should happen. And I think I'd like you to recognize that, and let's see if I can find something here. How many of you are concealed gun carriers? About what I thought. But that's okay.
In the process.
In the process, we got one. All right, good. Because you don't have to carry a gun. It helps. Good guys with guns can overcome bad guys with guns. But you work in an industry, well, where healthcare is prime importance. And so therefore, rather than take somebody's life or injure somebody, your priorities are to save somebody. And I applaud that, particularly when I go to the hospital. Anybody guess what that is? Gunshots. How many have ever heard gunshots before? A lot of you. Good, because those of you who have not, I suggest to you that you need to hear what it sounds like. And I would recommend that you go down to a gun range and just say, I'd like to hear a gun fired. And you know they'll let you in for free and listen to that? Because it's extremely important that when you hear a gunshot, you don't freeze and try to figure out whether it is a jackhammer or a string of firecrackers or something else that might be falling, shelves, boxes falling, because when you hear something like that, you will freeze, I tell you. The human mind cannot cope with something it is not familiar with for a short period of time. And you will try to relate that sound to anything that you have had in your past experience to what it might be. And during that short period of time, it might take 5-10 seconds, you are very, very vulnerable. So you need to already know, you need to have a mindset. You need to recognize what it is and what you're going to do about it. Now, there are 3 options. Just 3. It's a simple process. I bet you all know what they are. What is it? Run, hide, fight. Exactly. That should be your mantra. Anytime you hear something similar to gunshots or explosions or anything like that, you should run. You should always know where your exits are. You should know where your entrances are. If you're in a particular position in which you are working or wandering around, and you do it frequently, you should know where the hiding places are. How many people know where the locked rooms are in their facility? Oh, that's not good. Not very many. Okay, let's make an assumption here. Somebody comes in the door, I don't care which door, and starts shooting. And you hear it, and it's down the hall. And you have time to run. So you run. However, when you hear the sounds and the excitement and the people shrieking and screaming and hollering, you don't have time to run. So what do? You hide. And if you're walking from the water cooler, if there is such a thing anymore, from the water cooler to the printing machine or the office or wherever you might be in a normal work situation, you should know wherever you are where the best place to hide is. You should know how far it is from here to the locked door that you can run into and lock it and jam something up against it. You should know that automatically. It should be second nature to you, just as a mindset. Okay, here I am. I'm running 50 copies off. The boss told me they needed 60, but all of a sudden we're out of paper. Bang, bang, bang! What do? Well, you don't do the extra 10 copies for sure. What you do is know where your locked door is and head for there. And you grab everybody else with you and say, let's go. And somebody hunkers down and says, I don't want to go. I don't know what's going on. And they freeze because they haven't had the benefit of listening to these gunshots. And they don't know what's going on. Now, in that case, what you do is you either drag them or leave them. Don't put yourself at risk with somebody who is going to ensure that you are going to be at risk. And so if everybody in the office understands where all that is, the only thing you really have to worry about is making sure that you let each other go into the room one at a time instead of all at once. Because that's going to cause a real problem in the room jamming up in the doorway. All right. Medical facilities. Holy cow, what a complicated industry that is. In a hospital. I did a tour of the Herman, or the Memorial Herman, whatever it is. I always get it mixed up. I never, whether it's Herman Memorial or Memorial Herman, but whichever one it is, there's a new one built down on 288 in Pearland. And they had an open house. And I thought, wow, what a great idea. I'll just go down there and see what's down there, get a free sandwich and a drink. And I did that. And we wandered around and we saw all the labs and we saw all the rooms and everything. And they were very proud of their facility, and rightfully so. But one thing that they don't have is very many locks. Now, I understand that. You don't want a patient to be able to lock himself in the room and stick his tongue out at you through the window and you not be able to get in there. You need to be able to get in there for health care purposes and making sure that you've got his credit card and all those things. But they also don't have sections where you can lock and partition off portions of the hospital. So in a lot of institutions and a lot of offices, they have these doors that you can lock, and you can force somebody to stay in one particular area and not have access to any place else. Hospitals are different. You have patients. You got to worry about patients. What happens if an event happens and a doctor is in surgery? Well, I'm not sure either. But I'll tell you, that doctor is going to be kind of worried, and I'm not sure I'd be wanting to be the one who's on the table, because he just may be getting a little nervous when he's doing that. But that is something to be in the plan, and I'm sure that is. It's going to be an instant decision made by the caregiver, the doctor. I mean, if he looks up and all the nurses have disappeared, he's got a problem. But I'm sure that they will have had those discussions on what's going to happen. But you need to do that in your own facility, within your own responsibilities and your areas of work. You need to know. You need to think it out. Now, if I could ask my wife to come up for a moment. This is my wife, Peggy. And if I could ask this young lady here to come forward as well. Yeah, you. One of the things that I'm going to show here is if you are close. Now we've run through the run, that didn't work. We've gone through the hide, that didn't work. So now we're going to fight. We don't have guns, we've already established that. But we have other ways of doing this. And a simple thing to do is a flashlight. Now, everybody can carry a flashlight. It just depends on what kind of flashlight you're going to have. You could have a small keychain flashlight, like this one. That's fine for finding your keys and unlocking your door and that kind of stuff. But if you're going to try and shine it in somebody's eyes to disorient them, it's not worth anything. So then we might go to a next size, which is this one. Now, I'm not going to shine this in anybody's eyes. There'll be enough peripheral light there so you can see that's pretty bright. That's 300 lumens. So that's pretty bright. You can carry that in your purse. It works very well. Then, if you really want to get excited, here's a 900 lumens. Now, if you shine that in somebody's eyes, they will have sparkles and will become disoriented and will not be able to operate for a few seconds. In time for you to either get away, hit him with a chair, or do all kinds of other bad things to him. Now, the problem with this is you need to be aware and familiar with your flashlight. What a common sense thing. What do you mean I need to be familiar with my flashlight? Well, when you show that flashlight over there, everybody look over there. There we go. I'll get it in a minute. There we are. There we go. All right, everybody see that? That's pretty bright. If that were in your eyes, you would probably not be able to see for a minute. And this particular flashlight, it goes up and back just by adjusting it in that manner. Now, but did you notice how long it took me to zero in on that little board? So when you turn your flashlight on, you're going to be kind of doing this to try to find the person's eyes, which is where you want it. You don't want it on his leg or foot. You want it in his eyes. So what we have here, Christopher, okay, stand over here. And what is your name?
Nicole.
Nicole. Nicole is going to take this flashlight and she is going to practice disorienting Christopher. Now, Nicole, you see this little green button at the end of it? Mm-hmm. That's all you got to do, just punch that. Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do is go over there and stand and flash that at Christopher's eyes. You can get close. You hope you're not that close to the guy, but maybe you could be. Okay, punch the button. Whoa, all right, there you go. You see, it took you a couple of seconds to really get that down. Yeah. Okay, good, thank you very much. Everybody give Nicole a hand. Not yet. Okay, so Nicole showed that she could be, in the Army we have ranges of shooting expertise. We have marksman, we have sharpshooter, and we have expert. I would give you a sharpshooter. All right. But you notice it took you a little while to see where the light was so that you could adjust it onto somebody's eyes. So you need to be familiar with your flashlight, where when you turn it on, it's not going to take you but just half a second to reorient that. A simple thing, but it will save you time. All right. We're in the hospital. We're in our locked room. And this guy comes up and he starts banging on the door. He wants in. I know you're in there. Come out, come out. Well, nobody's going to come out. He may shoot the door lock and it may come loose. But what have you done? What you have done is you've gone into that room and you have taken the desk, you have taken the filing cabinet, you have taken the printing machine, whatever happens to be in there. If it's a filing thing of laundry, of towels and stuff, you've taken that and you've jammed it against the door where he can't open it up. So, and oh, by the way, there's a fire extinguisher in there. And you use that fire extinguisher in case he cracks that rascal open. Psst. Great defensive device when you shoot it in his eyes. If you're out in the hallway and you start running down the hallway and you run across a fire extinguisher that's in the hall, you take that and you spray it on the floor. It has an oily substance that takes care of fire. And somebody running in that oily substance will not be able to maintain his balance, hopefully, and will slide and fall, and then you're at an advantage either to continue running or run back and poke him in the eye. So, now we're still in the room though. We're still locked in there. You don't want to get where the guy can shoot because a rifle can shoot through regular doors. All right. Now you see, those of you who can, there are door closers is what they call them at the top of a lot of industrial doors. They're like this. And if you have a belt or something that can be tied around that elbow thing, the door can't be opened very easily. And so it'll struggle against that belt. Now, you're going to say, well, what if it's just us girls and we don't have belts? Well, if you're wearing jeans, modesty should be thrown aside. And now you're into wrapping jeans around this thing because jeans are very, very strong. Denim is a great fabric. And if you have a guy in there and he's got jeans on, by all means, take advantage of it. So that's another way. Now, what else is in that room? Well, we don't know because it's just a fictional room right now. But I would wager that it probably has a ceiling very similar to this. Now, these ceilings have panels. You can see the panel, and that's just a framework of that panel is upon it. It's a sound reduction panel. And those panels can be moved just by tapping them up and moving them along. So you get up in the ceiling. You stand on a table. You put it on a chair here. And everybody helps each other climb up into the ceiling. And you say, well, I'm not sure about that because that framework doesn't look too sturdy.
That's right.
And you're absolutely right. So what you want to do is you want to get near a load-bearing wall along the side of the room where the framework is more sturdy. And when you open up the panel, you can then climb from there onto the load-bearing wall and scurry away. And just hope he doesn't come in, see the panel open, get up there himself and start shooting. But I'm just hiding. That's what we're doing. Cover and concealment. Who knows the difference between cover and concealment? Oh. Okay. Cover is when you're in a mall and a shooting event happens and you hide behind a dress rack. You are concealed. People can't see you. You're concealed in there. But what would happen if a bullet were to shoot into the dress rack? It would probably go through those dresses. So you're not covered. Cover is when you are protected from flying debris like bullets. So you need to have, if you don't have anything else, get concealed, But what you really are looking for is something that is cover. And you can do that by hiding behind filing cabinets or whatever is there. Or, I know we're in a paperless society. Everybody believe that? No, that's why they still sell filing cabinets. But if you take a bunch of files or books and put them in front of you or your head and hunker down in a corner and do like this with all of this paper, paper is a great bullet protection. You don't think that. No, one sheet. No, not very good. But some of these reports that medical specialists put together will protect you from here to no telling when. All except RPGs and those sort of things. But at any rate, so you use whatever you can find within your environment to protect yourself. Let's switch from the medical facility, but what I'm going to tell you about on other things is just equally as applicable at your workplace. Let's assume that we go to a mall. Now, I'm probably going to get a few hands when I say, who goes to the mall? You don't go to the mall? You may be the safest of us all. Good for you. All right. Now, there have been some mall shootings. And if you hear, you should know where your entrances are. You should know where your exits are. And when you go into the mall, no matter which one it is, you probably know which one, where to get out of it, you think. But there's more exits in a mall than you think. You're walking down the mall. It's a covered mall. You've got stores to the left. You've got stores to the right. You've just come in the main door, and you're walking down here. Bang, bang, bang. Something's happening down the hall or in back of you or somewhere else. What do? Well, if I go back, that's where the shooter is. I don't want to go out that way. So think, the stores on the exterior part of the mall all have exit doors. They're required to by fire regulations. Merchandise is also delivered in those doors. So if you're close to the exterior of the mall, there's all kinds of exits. And everybody scurries out there and goes out into the parking lot or wherever's out there and calls 911 and says, there's a shooting event, something's happening here, and law enforcement's notified. So that's one way to do it. Okay, let's say that you're in a mall that you're not close to the exterior stores. And all you have is these stores here now to the left. They don't have exterior doors to the outside. But they do have back rooms. And in many, many instances, they have an employee's corridor that not many people know about. They will have a corridor that's between stores that's built into these facilities where the employees go out and then they go down a hallway and enter or exit into another main corridor. So there are some exit routes, and you got to find out. You got to ask, hey, have you got an exit route? And see if they will let you go out. Of course they will. So those are some other areas. All right. We're in the mall. What we want to do now is hide. Where do we hide? Not behind the clothes racks. Where we go is we ask a store employee, do you have a safe room? Everybody heard of safe rooms? Okay. A lot of stores nowadays are beginning to build safe rooms into their retail stores. I was in Microsoft at Bay Area Boulevard, or Bay Area Mall. And I asked the manager, I said, what happens if you have a shooting event right outside the store? And he says, oh, no problem. He says, I just gather up the employees and the customers and we go back to our safe room and we lock it up and we come out when somebody tells us it's okay. And I thought, wow, now there's a good plan. Microsoft, and it's an industrial, an organizational, corporate thing. In all of their new stores, they're building safe rooms. And a couple of other stores that I've been checking on that they're beginning to build have built safe rooms as well. So those are options that weren't available before, but are now. So you just need to pick out and say, okay, I want to go to the safe room with you. Fine, come on. Run, hide, fight. What happens if you have to fight? We talked about that a little bit in your office space. Now, one of the things that you might carry if you don't carry a gun is a pen. This is called a tactical pen. And it will do all the things that a regular pen does. It'll write checks. It'll do all kinds of stuff. But when you put it like that, just like that, on the other end is a sharpened end. This is made out of aircraft aluminum, so it's very strong. At the other end is a sharpened point. And there is graphic and ceramic tip on it. And you can use this if you're too close and you are down to the nitty-gritty. You can use this as a knife in the jugular, in the throat, in the eye, in the ear. I know, you're all healthcare guys. But if you really get down to it, I will tell you that if it's you or he or her, you're going to use this. You are going to use this. So therefore, a tactical pen will help you. Oh, there's another life-saving measure incorporated into this pen that you don't think about. If you're driving and you have an accident and you're caught inside your car and your engine is out and the electronics are out and you can't lower the window to get out, boop, this will shatter your window just like that with just that amount of force. Boop. Your side windows in your vehicles are very fragile. Not a lot of people realize that. Your front window is reinforced glass. It will not shatter. It will come in the whole thing on you. But this will shatter the side windows so that you can climb out. Say that you're driving. We have a big rain. You're going under I-10. You make the corner and all of a sudden there's 15 feet of water in front of you. And you drive off in there because you can't stop. The electronics are shorted out. And what do? Oh dear, I have my little purse here. My wife carries her on her purse. Pick that up, out the window you go. Get on top, get saved by some good-looking fireman or something like that. So that's the pen. I have another thing that is a piece of plastic. That's all it is, just a piece of plastic. You can fly with this, but it makes a great defensive device. It has all kinds of little points here. And you can scrape down somebody's face, you can scrape down somebody's arms or hands or anything like that, and that will take care of that. So you can buy these where? Where can you buy these sort of things?
Academy.
How about Amazon? Is anybody an Amazon shopper?
Yes.
Oh, we got a few hands. Yeah. Oh, that's why she doesn't go to the mall. You know, it's one of the things I was making a joke about somebody or about protecting themselves by not going to a mall. And online shopping now has just become very, very advantageous. So you can have a security plan, and the security plan is, that's right, I don't go to the mall. I use Amazon.
What is that called? Have a name?
This is the black plastic defensive device. You know, I've had this for so long, I don't even remember what it's called. But that's what it is. If you look up defensive devices in the directory of Amazon, I'm sure you'll run across something like this. And oh, by the way, you can buy flashlights there as well. And you can buy pens. Pens are not very expensive. You can get all kinds of them. But what you want to do is make sure that it has a cap over the pen portion, because you will find some for $5 and $6 and $7 that don't have this extra cap, and so therefore when you get this, it'll break a window, it'll hurt somebody in the eye or something like that, and will write as a pen. But if you put it somewhere, the ink's going to leak out. So you just have to be careful about what you're buying, and I would say that, $20 to $25 you can buy one of these fairly inexpensively. And the flashlights, they go from all kinds of different flashlights. They go from the small ones that I showed you to the mediums to the others. How many people like cats? A few people like cats. There is a device that will hang on your keychain. It has very sharp cat's ears. And how many have seen this? You've seen that. You're pretty sharp. You got this stuff down. You getting your CHL too? No?
My daughter just got hers. I'm thinking about it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've seen it.
All right. This is a keychain thing, and they come in different, you can get them in bulldogs if you like dogs better. You can get them in cats. You can get them with cats with long ears. And what you do is, you have it on your keychain, you put 2 fingers in here, and it acts as a scraper. And it's very strong. This is some sort of brass metallic thing. And they have very strong plastic items as well. But just use that. My daughter carries one in her purse all the time, and fortunately she hasn't had to use it. When I was stationed in Jerusalem, my wife and I, my practice wife, not this wife, we went to a restaurant in Jerusalem on the east side of town, which is the Jewish quarter. And in Jerusalem, how many have been to Israel? There's one. Boy, you're on top of everything. All right. You're going, all right, super. Israelis are prepared. They have been, since 1948, they have gone through all kinds of threats, wars, you name it. They've been through it. It comes in the blood almost. And they are taught as young children about mortars, about artillery shells and explosions, and IEDs, improved explosive devices in cars. They're taught not to take a bus. If they sit down at the bus stop and there is a package that's unattended at the bus stop, they know to get away from that and to report it. Israelis understand the threat, but I'm afraid we don't. And that is what I am trying to do, is to educate as many people as I can to get to that mindset. We prepare for hurricanes, we prepare for tornadoes, we prepare for all kinds of natural disasters. And we take it in our stride. We think of it as relatively normal. God put it there, we got to cope with it. Terrorism has arrived on our shores, and we have to be prepared for it. And just by talking about some of these things, I think you're raising your level of awareness. Back to Jerusalem. In Jerusalem, they all have guards on the outside of their public facilities. It's an off-duty policeman, it's an off-duty military guy, and they all have weapons. So my wife and I went to a restaurant, a little seafood restaurant. We'd been there before. We were about halfway through the meal when I heard bam, 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 bam. Shots were fired right outside the door of the restaurant. We hit the floor immediately because we knew what was going on. So did everybody else. But about that time, a package came through the front door and exploded. Killed some people, wounded a whole bunch. My wife and I were sitting towards the back. We were away from the primary explosion, so we escaped without harm. The terrorist was killed, but he still delivered the device. Now, everybody in that restaurant knew what to do. Unfortunately, the people closer to the front door didn't have a chance. But in this pin, you know, if you're in a restaurant, with my little pin that I just lost, you can shatter the window. If you're sitting next to a window in a restaurant and you hear something that doesn't sound good at the front door, you know, you can take your pin and break that window and use that as an escape. There was a lady who did that up in Killeen, Texas a few years ago. They had a crazy guy come in, start shooting up the McDonald's. She threw a chair, or somebody threw a chair through the window, and many of them escaped the restaurant from that way. So think about that. Now, what you don't want to do is, if you're on the second or third floor of the restaurant, you don't want to break the window and jump. That hurts. So you have to know and be aware of your surroundings at all times. I first learned how to be aware of my surroundings at a young age. I was something like 7, 8 years old. I was raised in national parks. It was a wonderful life. My dad was a national park ranger. We moved around from one national park to another. I had God's All Outdoors as a playground. We moved to Big Bend National Park in 1945, right after it was established. My dad was the first chief ranger there. There were only 3 families. Our parents, our mothers, homeschooled us. So it was a great life, but there was no doctor. It was 110 miles to the nearest town, over dirt roads. There was no telephone. There was no electricity. It was a wonderful life. I climbed mountains. I did all kinds of wondrous things that kids can only dream about nowadays. But I had to work for it. One of my chores was taking the trash out. So I would go through the house and I would, centralize all the trash, and I would take it out. And our trash can was a 50-gallon barrel drum about 75 feet down a little pathway in the back of the house. So I picked up the trash. Now the trash was emptied once a week. The trash had been emptied the day before, the big barrel. So I knew that was empty, but it was just something that I knew. So I'm trotting down the path, and on top of the trash can is a Campbell's soup, red and white tomato soup. I remember that vividly. I got down to the barrel, and it was about to here on me at that time, and I proceeded to dump the trash into the barrel. Now, ordinarily, if the barrel had been empty, the can would have rattled when it hit the bottom. That's just subconsciously, you know that. Well, it didn't rattle. So I wondered, well, I emptied it yesterday. So I leaned over and dumped the rest of it while I was doing that, and there was a skunk in there. I was not aware of my surroundings. And ever since that time, that was I got to tell you, it's a funny story, but I got to tell you, I still remember that, not knowing what was in that barrel before I leaned over and emptied the trash. Always be aware of your surroundings and your environment. And that translates into the security thing. Now, it took me weeks to get that aroma out. I got to tell you that was a very traumatic experience. We were watching some workmen drill a well, and we kids were the shadow government, because we would go watch everything that went on, then it'd come back at night and tell our dads what was going on. Not meaningfully, that just happened the way it was. What'd you do today? Oh, we went up and watched the well diggers. They got down 30 feet today. So we're up there, and this guy, he says, Bobby, he said, we don't mind you coming and watching us, but would you mind standing upwind? So I've always remembered that for whatever reason that people, you know, don't like skunk aroma, and I don't like it, and I am always environmentally and surroundingly aware of what's going on, I think. Okay, let's do some fun stuff here. Where's my fun stuff? Somebody's got my fun stuff. Oh, I forgot about the flashlight. I had to travel here a couple of months ago, and my wife, I have taught her all kinds of things about security. But this particular night, the wind was howling. I really can't describe all of this. I could make it sound very eerie, but I won't. At any rate, the bottom line was that she became very concerned that she was alone in the house, and she's not a gun shooter. So she didn't have a gun, and she was very concerned about what would happen if somebody broke in. Just one of those fears that just come upon you at times. I had given her this flashlight. Not this one, but another one. And it, much like the others, has a light that's very strong, and you can discombobulate somebody. But what she really liked about it was the fact that it also had a taser in it. Now, the guy I bought this from is a former CIA agent and said, I will never sell you anything that I don't check myself. So he sent this video to me, and he said, here's my wife showing me how the taser works. And you can see his wife, and she said, are you sure about this? And he says, of course. He says, I want everybody to know what happens when you do this. So she said, okay. And he crumpled. He crumpled on camera. It was the most agonizing thing I've ever seen to watch. So it works, and it's, like I said, it's disguised as a flashlight. It takes one little switch at the bottom of it to turn it from light to the taser, and it's kind of neat, and you can get it on Amazon. Anybody, is this familiar to anybody? Wasp and hornet spray. If you have a desk at work, if you are at home, inside the house, in your bedroom, watching TV, don't believe in guns, get some wasp and hornet spray. This shoots out 20 feet and does a direct spray. And so it's kind of like the flashlight. You got to practice a little bit. So go outside, not inside, and practice spraying targets. Now, the other thing is, depending on what kind you get, this is Hot Shot. Raid makes one as well. Make sure that you don't buy a new can and expect it to work immediately, because sometimes this little jigger right here will block up. And what happens is you get foam all over your hand, and you don't want to do that if you're facing somebody who's threatening you, because that's just embarrassing. So, relax, I'm not going to shoot it. But it will shoot, and it will shoot 20 feet, and it'll get wasp nests and hornets nests. I use it for carpenter bees and to threaten my grandkids. And so this is probably the most less fatal thing that you can use, but if somebody gets it in their eyes or their mouth or their nose, they're going to stop doing whatever it was that they were doing. And this is something that's very, very easy to obtain. You can have 5 or 6 of them around the house. You know, anytime that you are watching television, you can have it stuck down here on your chair, wherever. Put it as a centerpiece on the table. At any rate, wasp and hornet spray. I guarantee it'll work.
I can help you or your company prepare for a terrorist or shooter event and possibly save lives. Contact me now. You'll be glad you did.
I met Colonel Shawley last year in September. I was impressed just in meeting with him just face to face, and I reached out to him to do a talk today. And the talk that he did was on counterterrorism in a hospital or healthcare environment, but it applied really to any environment. Surprisingly, he really brought practical tools to this talk that I was not expecting. And it was very useful. I think, and he was funny and quiet, and gave a lot of really good personal information tying it back to counterterrorism. I'm really impressed. He did a great job. I would recommend him highly for any conference, even just for the practical side of things. Tools that we can use to protect ourselves in our world. So. Thank you for the opportunity to speak right now.
I learned so much from today's talk. As a new mom and a manager in charge of a team, I feel responsible for ensuring safety even in the workplace, but now I'm going to carry it into my personal life. As I said, I am a new mom, so when I'm at the mall or a restaurant, I now have some new things to think about. Additionally, I really appreciate the demonstration of the many different tools and things that we can keep in our purse or in our desk that can provide protection or defense. Can't wait to go on Amazon and look for those items. So again, thank you for this afternoon. I really learned a lot.
Hi, my name is Teresa Rodriguez, and I'm with Houston Methodist Hospital, and I was fortunate to hear a talk from Mr. Shotley on terrorism, counterterrorism, and it was very enlightening. He brought to my attention several aspects that I think will help me on trips to the mall, especially educate my family about it, at theaters, restaurants, every public place. So I definitely encourage anybody out there, if you have an opportunity to hear him speak, it would be well worth it.
Meet Robert Shawley, speaker and leadership expert.
Leaders are not born, they're grown.
And Colonel Robert Shawley has been in the business of growing leaders for more than 50 years.
I want to share what I know with other people. I think it's my bound duty.
It's the same sense of duty that served Bob well during his 35-year military career, which included tours in Vietnam as a company commander. Shawley's journal from those years formed the foundation for his best-selling book, Young Soldiers, Amazing Warriors.
We had 4 Medals of Honor and 5 Distinguished Service Crosses, and they were all within a 60-day period. Very heavy combat, and men giving up their lives to save their friends and their buddies and the people that they depended upon. Those were the hardest.
After receiving a Nobel Peace Prize and retiring as a highly decorated Army officer, Bob spent 15 years in the corporate world.
This is my 4th career. I've had 24 positions of leadership. And so I think I have seen all of the different ways that leaders can and should be leaders.
Shawley's leadership lessons come from countless real-world experiences, not theories and books. It's this approach that makes Bob a unique and sought-after speaker.
Colonel Robert Shawley has a compelling story for those who seek the edge that separates the greats from the aspirants.
His audiences learn important lessons about courage, responsibility, and the importance of teamwork.
His natural tendencies and personal style give the audience a feeling of empowerment and pride.
I get out of bed in the morning because I'm still having a good time with life. Caring for people and helping them is one of my main passions in life.
To find out what Bob can offer your organization, visit roberthshawley.com.